done with this field wheel, drop straight down to this dry shaft. First thing I'm going to check is my dry shaft. Make sure my dry shaft is not bent, broke, or cracked. All my nuts and bolts are all there and tight. Make sure there's nothing in between it that will stop it from spinning. Next thing, now remember, you want to start from the middle and work your way on out. So, the next thing close to the dry shaft is your air lines. Once again, I'm talking about my air lines. Make sure they're not cracked, broke, or leaking, and all my fittings are tight. Next thing I'm going to check is my brake chamber, because you already know the brake chamber goes, the air lines go to your brake chamber. So, make sure my brake chamber is not bent, broken, cracked, or leaking. All my nuts and bolts are all there and tight. From there, you already know, you got a slack adjuster and push rod right in front of it. So, once again, I want to check my slack adjuster and push rod, make sure that they're not bent, broken, cracked. Make sure all my carter pins, my nuts and bolts are all there and tight. I should have no more than 2 inches of play. How would I check it? Chalk the wheels. Go in the cab and release the brake. Come back and mark the push rod. Go back in, set the brakes. Come back here and measure it. More than 2 inches of play, I need to have it adjusted. From there, now remember, you're working your way out. So this thing close to you, release springs and U-bolts. Coming on out. Same thing how you sit in the front. Make sure they're not bent, broken, cracked. All my nuts and bolts on them is all there and tight. Check my spring mounts, front and back, just how you sit in the front. Make sure they're not bent, broken, cracked. Your nuts and bolts are all there and tight. Next thing, this right here is called a torsion bar. Check my torsion bar, make sure that it's not bent, broken, cracked. All your nuts and bolts on it is all there and tight. Now remember, you're working your way on out. So since you can't see it, the next thing you already know, before you hit tires, brake drums and brake pads. Make sure they're not bent, broken, cracked. I'm looking for signs of oil, grease, and heat discoloration. I should have a 1/4 inch minimum left on my brake pads. Same thing. Next, come out to your tires. I'm gonna check my tires. Make sure that they are the same size tire, they ride evenly. I'm going to check my tread and sidewall for chunks, cracks, nails, and screws. Check in between my spacers of my duties. Make sure that there's nothing in the way that will stop it from spinning. Well, what around? Sorry, we're gonna get it again. Okay, from there, come on out to your rim. Check my rim once again. Make sure my rims is not bent, broken, cracked. I have no illegal welds. Check all my lug nuts. Make sure they're all there. Make sure they're all tight. Make sure there's no rust behind it that would indicate that they were loose. This right here is called an axle, not a hub. I'm going to check my axle. Make sure it's not bent, broken, cracked, or leaking. And all my nuts and bolts on it is all there and tight. Last thing, once again, is your valve stem. How would I check that with an air pressure gauge and make sure that it's not bent, broken, cracked, or leaking? Come on back here. Check your mud flap. Make sure your mud flap is not bent, broken, cracked. Make sure it's not missing. Make sure all your nuts and bolts on it is all there and tight. From there, dropping down here, inside here is your airbags. Come in, you might gotta go over here, but it's your airbags right there. Go check my airbags. Make sure my airbags is not bent, broke, well, are not cracked, broke, or leaking. And all my nuts and bolts on it is all there and tight. The last thing well, not the last thing, but the next thing you check is your shock back here. Check my shock. Make sure my shock is not bent, broken, cracked, or leaking. Nuts and bolts are tight. The last thing you check back here is your tail lights. Make sure they're clean, not cracked or broken, and they work. Cut. That's section 5.